Well, hello there. You join us for another edition of And Enough! Today we will be reading an excerpt from the Book of Soulshackle. Open it! Growled Proctor Exitant's Damon Cokelord, glaring at the hatch facing them. EOK-94's muscle gunner Arbitrator Keel fired a crack grenade straight at the inoperable locking mechanism on the hatch that was barring the X-Action squad's route. Primed to detonate on impact, the grenade's deafening explosion echoed around the tight confines surrounding Cokelord's squad. In the smoky aftermath, the reek of burning metal filled the Proctor Exitant's nostrils, and he saw the glow of cooling plasteel around the fist-sized hole Keel had created. Cokelord smiled. Numerous fugitives had thought themselves safe from EOK-94 over the past month until the Keel knocked on their doors. At Cokelord's command, Arbitrators Skull and Purdon threw their weight against the damaged hatch. After a few impacts, the hatch gave way in a cloud of metallic flakes and clanged against the inner wall of the chamber beyond. Stab lights shining from the Arbitrator's breastplates swept over the corridor section it led into. Cokelord was the first to advance through, and the squad followed closely. Just behind him was a hovering Neosia Aquila that floated on thrumming anti-grav suspensors. Its sculpted head seemed to stare with imperious disdain at all before it. Purdon, Ferguson, Reiki ahead. Carson, escort. Smits, Bedu, left 10 yards and stand. Skull, rear guard. Proctor Excitant emphasized directions with swift jabs of his armored fingers. The rest of you with me. Cullimore, keep checking for identifiable transmissions as well as the witch's signal. If there is any chance of locating a secure relay to contact command, I want it found. A series of curt responses and Vox bead clicks signified his squad's understanding and compliance. Harsh light from Cokelord's chest-mounted stab light, and above from the hovering Neosia Aquila's strobe lumens, revealed the corridor EOK-94 had emerged into. Shadows jumped with every step the Arbitrators took. Cables as broad as Cokelord's shoulders and twisting wires snaked between brackets barely above head height. Cokelord caught darting movements on the periphery of his vision between the piles of detritus. He hoped it was merely vermin. As the squad advanced down the corridor, Smits, Bedu and Skull covered their rear and flanks, sweeping weapons and stab lights into the dark while alternating their advances. Cokelord turned back from watching their movements and monitored the rest of the X-Action squad, noting the speed and efficiency with which they took positions and implemented his orders. Arbitrator Maktar effortlessly panned her heavy subjugation pattern assault shield. Patterning Carson, who moved quickly, on the other side of the corridor, combat shotgun held rigid against her shoulder. Cokelord marched in the squid amongst shotgun held at his hip. The light reflected back from the grimy and dusty surfaces enclosing them, and Cokelord saw chips and scrapes in the Arbitrator's armor. A couple suppressed minor injuries sustained during the dyad of Zephyr's impact. He saw Smits favoring his left leg. Cokelord wondered how the witch had navigated its way through the twisted mass of wreckage between the dyad of Zephyr and the Space Hulk. EOK-94 had discovered a route only by following the signal from the Psyker's auto-penitent cowl. That the witch was still shackled by it gave Cokelord hope of finding the mutant. They had tracked the cowl's signal down a smashed set of stairwells, but the Arbitrators had discovered this alternate route, enabling them to intercept their quarry. Update, Ferguson. Cokelord voxed the squad's revelatum. Do we have a clear orientation and proximity? Down the corridor, near the limit of the stab light's effective range, he saw Arbitrator Ferguson point further on in the direction she had been scouting. You saved time breaching that hatch, Ferguson responded. We should close on the target within 30 chronosegments. Sir, we're gaining. Vargason advanced forward in the lee of Perdin, the squad subjugator, who shielded her from the front. She indicated the arrangement of overhead ducts at Cokelord as Cokelord kept pace, pointing to bracket arrays and small metal plates bearing almost invisible technical reference. I'm becoming more certain as we progress, Proctor, that this was some variant of the Pescient class of system fringe trawler. The decking inside the hatch was the clue, and the array of power and data transfers confirmed it. If we continue, we should reach a service hatch that intersects with where we think those stairwells emerge. Facts. Understood, officer, Cokelord voxed in reply. You and Perdin, continue mapping our route. He turned to face the Vox signifier. Calamore, anything? He saw Arbitrator Calamore's head was cocked, his mouth set in concentration, but his lips twisted in disgust occasionally. Cokelord, second in command, was listening intently to his Vox relay, making minute calibrations to his equipment. Several geistings, Proctor, Calamore reported, plus fragments of possible imperial signals. Sir, there's other things. Voices, whisperings, words I can't make out. But there's something familiar. It's close to us. It's close to a precinct signal pattern. Carrier signal only, no data, but the waveform appears general. Could it be from the systems above the Dyad Zafra? Cokelord asked. I thought they were wrecked. Definitely not, Proctor. Kalmar was emphatic. Whatever this is, if it is a precinct signal, it's ancient. Keep trying to pin the location down, Cokelord ordered. The Proctor Excitant moved to join Arbitrator Vargason, ordering the rest of the Exaction squad to follow while maintaining watch around their positions. Weapons and stab lights swept slowly across shadowy alcoves and ceiling boards. EOK-94 followed the corridor's twists and turns. Vargason regularly called out instructions warning of deadfalls and leaking conduits, as well as areas of potential ambush. Cokelord and the rest of the squad followed Vargason's directions, moved into a series of connected chambers, through rents in bulkheads or dropping down half levels. Cokelord felt their route was corkscrewing madly, but he trusted the revelatum. Calamore reported that the potential precinct signal was marginally stronger. He nearly had a direction for it, missed the wash of half voices. After moving single file down a cramped passage, Cokelord led most of the squad through a hatch into a wide chamber. The low ceiling was supported by squat columns, each of which bore a rectangular control panel. Some had flickering lights that enabled Cokelord to pull out the room's dimensions. Directly opposite the hatch they had entered from was a large black gash, a rupture in the wall. He saw twisted lengths of metal and torn deck plate at the entrance. As Cokelord glanced back to check on his squad, he noticed another hatch further along the same wall they had entered by. It stood ajar, the chamber behind in darkness. A head crouched next to one of the large columns was Vargason. She looked to be examining something on the ground while Perdin braced her shield next to her and scanned for threats. Cokelord approached, the Nuncio Quilla following in his wake. Its appearing spotlight made Vargason's shadow grow and shrink against the column. The rest of the squad spread out. What have you found? Cokelord asked. He could smell burned flesh with an accompanying odour of spoiled fat. Vargason gestured to the ruptured wall section ahead and indicated that it was there where the morass of stairwells finally came to an end. Still crouched, she turned, holding up something ragged and broken. Even with the light from her scanner headset illuminating it, it took Cokelord a moment to realise he was looking at the remains of the auto-penitent cow. Blackened flesh clung to where it had been ripped free of the witch's head. Cokelord's hopes of securing the witch again dropped at the sight of it, but were not snuffed out. The mutant was not only loose, Coldclaw now had to assume it was in full possession of its unholy powers again. He glanced at the black flesh and hoped it was impaired. We got you once, he thought. We will do it again. Nielsen, set Breaker loose, he ordered. The biomechanical cybermastiff was not as accurate as following the cowl's signals, but Coldclaw was confident it will still lead them to their quarry. The cybermastiff bent to the remains of the cowl that Nielsen held before it, then turned its head and barked. Breaker has a trace, Proctor. Nielsen, the leashmaster, gave the caniform servitor a verbal command, and the cybermastiff lurched in pursuit, fleshy nose to the ground. It wove between the columns, Nielsen at its heels. That is all we have time for this week. Please join us again next week for more. I am the Knot!
2023. What we're going to do is Tantrums and Tabletops this year, guys.
I'm going to be a Space Marine.
For God's sake, you did that last year, Ben, twice.
Fine. We could leave the shed.
We could leave the shed. But what will we do?
We've got the Key Arts Centre in Newport on the 16th of April.
What for?
HeroesCon 2023.